Hi, this is your host Satyan Bhartia and welcome to here for Let's Talk. Today we have with us Kyle Weller, founding head of product at Onehouse. Kyle, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Swapnil. Good to be here.
It's my pleasure to talk to you today, and we are going to talk about, of course, Onehouse. We'll also talk about the evolution, development progresses we are seeing where we are storing databases. But before we get into the weeds, I would like to talk about the company itself. Since you are one of the founding members of the company, talk a bit about the origin of the company.
Yep.
What changed in the market when it comes to databases that led to the creation of One House?
Yes, awesome. And a little bit about my background would help understand that as well. So I used to be a product lead for Azure Databricks, and we were on the forefront of creating this, coining this term of what the Lakehouse is. And I saw firsthand and observed there with many organizations across the globe that they had a hard time creating the initial foundation of a lakehouse and bringing data into cloud storage such that you could do analytics and do AI on top of your data. And so Onehouse, our founder and CEO, he's the original creator of an open source project that's called Apache Hudi, Hudi. And around this project is kind of the pioneer of one of these first lakehouse technologies. And when Vinod, his name is Vinod Chandar, Vinod and I met up a few years ago, and he started to describe the challenges that he saw in the community and that he wanted to solve. And it was light bulb moments for me of, hey, I see this firsthand with all of my customers today. They have challenged to bring data in from a variety of sources, whether these are transactional databases, whether these are event streams, whether it's just a swamp. A lot of people like to call it a data swamp out in cloud storage, and bringing that data into structure and schema and governance and ways that you can actually transact and mutate that data on top of the data lake. So these are the type of problems that Onehouse aims to solve and to make it a very fast and easy, a fully managed cloud service to get a full operational lakehouse up and running in minutes.
Can you also talk about when we can talk about data lakes, data warehouses, and now lake houses. Uh, of course, we have been covering it for all, but for the sake of our audience, what is the difference between these two? Are when we look at some of these technologies, are these like evolution or they are parallel adjacent technologies? Is, for certain use case, this is the ideal solution. Certain use case, this is the ideal solution. You also have to move data and you don't want to move. Ingress cost can go up. You also have to extract value, and then there are limitations on where you're storing data. So I just want to understand the whole landscape.
Yeah, great question. And, the evolution and history of these two main architectural patterns, data warehouses, data lakes, it goes back multiple decades. Data warehouses have been around for a long, long time. And data lakes were born and created when the search engines were born. And we had some on-prem solutions like Hadoop and others that were created to handle much larger scale data and deal with unstructured type objects. So data warehouses, they're amazing at characteristics of having transactional data available for analytics and having schema and structure and governance and all these type of things for data inside data warehouses. They excel at handling concurrency of queries and handling BI style analytics and dashboards and queries like these. Now, data lakes, their purpose started and originated from some scale concerns, scale and cost, but also to be able to leverage unstructured data alongside of structured data. And this is why they were first created. Now, when people go to build their data architectures, they're trapped in between, hey, do I use a data warehouse? Do I use a data lake? Actually, I've seen over the last 10 years, many organizations actually using both and creating hybrid style architectures, and data ends up being copied back and forth between them. So starting near 2016, 2017, the first of its kind technology was created. This is Apache Hudi again, Hudi, and this extracted some of the core features and components of a data warehouse, and it brought them to a data lake. And it allowed you to, data lakes are immutable by nature. when you put data in and it's written to a file, you cannot change a row inside the file. You have to rewrite the file. And it incurs a large cost to mutate and change and prepare and transform this data. Now, with the introduction of Lakehouse technologies like Apache Hudi, Delta Lake, Apache Iceberg, these are the three leading open source projects around this. Now you can actually apply mutations to the data that's otherwise immutable. Now you can create metadata layers that bring ACID transactional guarantees to the data. Now you can have advanced statistics and other things built around these tables such that your queries, you can extract and squeeze out 100x performance gains on what you would have otherwise had as a raw collection of scattered files on cloud storage. So really the Lakehouse architectural pattern bridges these two gaps, brings the best qualities of a data warehouse, brings them to a lake, and makes that Lakehouse possible.
And now can you talk about what approach Onehouse has taken to Lakehouse concept?
Yes. For Onehouse specifically, one of the core things that we focus on is lightning fast, continuous, low latency ingestion of data into the data lakehouse. If you look across the data integration market today, there's a lot of pain points, friction points when it comes to trying to replicate and ingest and write data into data lakes themselves because of some of those core natures that I called out earlier, of the lake being immutable and low performance and these kind of things. So Onehouse has features and capabilities that are best in market in terms of cost and performance and ease of use in extracting data from event streams, whether these are Kafka, any flavor of Kafka or Pulsar or other popular event streaming services, or whether these are transactional databases, MySQL, Postgres, Mongo, SQL Server, or you have, CSV files, or we have a lot of customers that are purchasing data from third parties and it's dumping XML files or random things onto the lakes. We'll ingest all of this data in low latency and a continuous incremental fashion, write these into Lakehouse tables. We can leverage Apache Hudi, Iceberg, and Delta Lake. And then we will well optimize these tables, synchronize them to your catalogs, make it so you have an analytics ready environment that is always optimized, always online, always ready for your data intensive applications.
When we look at data, it is a sticky market. What edge Onehouse has over other incumbents and other players or new players when it comes to your Lakehouse approach and solution? And if you can also talk about what does your solution look like?
Yeah, great question. So the edge, well, let me start with let's start with the first part of your question, then go there. So the edge that Onehouse offers comes from some of the underlying foundation of the open source project that we build on top of Apache Hudi. And Apache Hudi, when you compare it next to the other leading open source projects, it has a lot of special sauce and differentiation around database-like services and features. So for example, Onehouse, by leveraging some of these technologies, we can build a full indexing subsystem around your data. And so as an incoming batch of records comes into the table and you need to apply mutations and updates, we have lightning fast ways that we can look up, identify if a record is something that's new to append or whether it's something that we need to mutate. And so we can squeeze out 10 to 100x kind of performance and cost savings versus almost all the other data integration tools on the market. And because, like our founder CEO, he's the creator, he's the inventor of the first of these kind technologies. And if you study the roadmaps and the history and the community development across these, our team that we have built and established have been the pioneers at creating these foundational services and systems on the Lakehouse. So with the team and the knowledge and the track history that we offer, now we're building these services that make it easy to reach for the customers that would have had to otherwise go and hire top talent or hard to reach talent in order to architect these systems. So then the second part of your question, you asked kind of what does it look like, right? So being a fully managed service, this is deployed on the cloud. And what happens when a customer comes to onboard and leverage our technology is first we deploy inside of the customer's VPC, a compute stack. And then they have a control plane, a UI that you can hit with API commands as well. And they're able to, within a matter of minutes, identify what the sources of their data is, define what it looks like to create the pipelines, how fast they want it to run, what types of transformations they would like to express, what types of data quality controls they would like to have there. And then they can turn these on and have auto scale, serverless experience to data integration, data ETL, data transformation inside of their VPC, their private networks in the cloud, writing data into their S3 buckets or other cloud storage buckets. You were asking about, there's a gravity center around data, and how it's hard sometimes for people to move their data or change services. And we see these query engines come and go. You've been in the data space for quite a while as well, and you've seen technologies have their hype cycles and then die away and are lost into the wind, right? And so what I've also noticed in and around this Lakehouse trend is gravity centers around even how you store that data and manage that data. Every query engine wants to build a vertical optimized stack and influence how you start from that query engine and influence how that data is stored so that they can drive retention into their query engine. And these query engines, they come and go. And also, as I mentioned before, people need to build an architect with multiple query engines in the picture. So what we're trying to do, even with our company, is decouple query engines completely from data storage, data management, data optimizations here. And one core way that we do this, actually, I saw this firsthand with many of our customers, is there's an example of like a Snowflake. They added that support I mentioned for Iceberg tables. But there's so many organizations out there that don't use Iceberg. They use Apache Hudi or they use Delta Lake. And there's another large behemoth out there of Databricks as well. Databricks prefers that data to be in Delta Lake format. And now I saw so many people trapped in a pickle where they're like, hey, I use both of these products. I love both of these products, but one tells me to store my data as Delta Lake. The other tells me to store it as Iceberg. What do I do? And so this is where we actually invented and created this new open source project called Apache Xtable. We co-launched this with Microsoft and Google just last year. We donated it to the Apache Software Foundation earlier this year. And now there's a vibrant community growing that helps bridge and interoperate your data across table formats. And so that we can ensure and guarantee that no one table format, no one way that you store your data locks you in to something that won't persist over time. Because like you said, Swapnil, data is that gravity center. Data will outlive and persist any of these technologies and services, even our company included. And so we need that data to be interoperable, interchangeable, and accessible to all of the technologies, even as they evolve and grow and new ones are created over time. So that's one new thing that our company introduced into the market, Apache Xtable. There's a really great community now with even Snowflake and Databricks contributing to the project. Also folks like Cloudera, Walmart. I already mentioned Microsoft, Google, Adobe, and some other great players inside that community as it's growing. So we're very excited about that as well.
And if you just look at, once again, the evolution of Lakehouse, table formats, where do you see we are heading? What kind of development trends you are seeing?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I think it's actually kind of ironic. If you Google search, what is a data lake for? What is a data lake? Why a data lake? The top search results will be about unstructured data. Now, ironically, data lakehouse technologies have kind of discarded or left aside unstructured data. They really focus on and shine around structured data and schematized data and these kind of things. Now, when you talk about trends and what's going forward, right, obviously you hear ubiquitous across the market, the rise of Gen AI use cases. And Gen AI is fueled by unstructured data. whether this is voice, text, audio, video, whatever it might be. Now, these Lakehouse technologies, they need to rapidly evolve and adapt and adjust to supporting and fueling these unstructured data sets as well. So you see Apache Hudi, this one that I mentioned before, it has a roadmap right now. A beta release just went out, Apache Hudi 1.0 release, where it actually adapts the storage types to also account for unstructured data. And because we have indexing subsystems around this project as well, we have seen many use cases out there already starting. Folks like Nielsen IQ, if you've heard of the marketing firm, folks like Notion, if you've used the note-taking app and they developed Notion AI. These type of companies have now leveraged our open source technology to create vector embeddings, but then generate the indexes around those vector embeddings on top of data lakes and lakehouse architecture. And now they can even do RAG-based applications or vector search directly on data lakes and unlock these Gen AI scenarios for the Lakehouse.
Can you also talk about the emergence of new markets or new kind of workloads? Of course, we can talk about Gen AI as well, but beyond Gen AI, where you see that Lakehouse is playing a critical role, and also because of these workloads, also we are seeing some of these development that is happening in this space.
Yes. I think that's a great question, because if you look at the explosion of new technologies, there's one person online that creates, his name's Matt Turk, I believe, and he creates this map of the data landscape. And each year, this landscape map grows exponentially. And if you look at it for 2024, it's overwhelming the number of different data companies and startups and services that are all growing. Now, to get it to your question, Swamnil, is the emergence of these use cases. There are different query engines that match to shine and have a good performance and cost match to different workload types. And you see this explosion of new query engines and new technologies being invented, because they can each squeeze out another 10x, another 20x, another 100x performance on a particular workload type. Now, in this age of the cloud, we've started to make it very easy to mix and match these technologies, because it's very easy now to build serverless style architecture in SaaS products. And so where it was preventative previously, where a company usually had to pick one type of query engine and kind of just live with that and make it multi-purpose, now companies are starting to mix and match their query engines and say, you know what, I've got graph style use cases. Hey, I've got time series style use cases. You know what, I've got really low latency. I need near real time, millisecond level, microsecond level style analytics for event to event kind of streaming. And so now people, with the advent of all of these serverless technologies and offerings, they're able to mix and match these query engines and create a really great fit for those workloads. Now, the way that the Lakehouse plays a role in this is, if you look across all of these technologies, the common core center across them all, they all communicate with and leverage data and can access data through the lakes. And so you see this convergence across the market. Even data warehouses now, you study the trends and you see Google's BigQuery, they created Big Lake, right? Snowflake, they've added in iceberg tables. Fabric, they have one lake, and now they've also extended that so that they can reach onto the lake as well. Everyone's pointing towards that lake, and this Lakehouse architecture is what's fueling that and making it possible to have high performance, good governance, structure, and the ability to share and collaborate on a single source of truth of your data for different workload types.
The fact is that we live in a API or data-driven world. Applications can come and go, new technologies come, how we write, rewrite, deploy applications, the whole evolution is going on there. But data, we all agree, it's kind of the new oil, and you don't change and replace data frequently. As companies are generating huge amount of data, and they're also consuming huge amount of data, from the talent a culture side also, what kind of challenges you're seeing companies face? How heavy investment is to put on folks like data engineers or data scientists, or organizations like like Onehouse, they enter the picture, lower the barrier of entry, so organizations can benefit from these new technologies that are coming in without having to worry about all the overhead cost investment.
Yes, yes. I'll take that second half of your question first. So I've seen this even firsthand, where I was a Microsoft employee and I was helping lead the partnership across Databricks and Microsoft. And we had worked really hard with this one customer to sign a multi-million dollar deal, and allow them to start using Databricks and other services inside Azure. Now, they made the payment, sent the check, and all the meters stayed idle for a long period of time. And folks inside the organization were coming down, breathing down my neck. They're like, Kyle, why aren't they using the product they just paid for? And why is it taking so long? It was because they still had a full data integration project to get done, and they needed the smart talent and the right data engineers available to bring this data and work across multiple domains even, and technology types to bring that data to even a place where it's possible to run analytics or Gen AI or these other services. And so what used to be, this Lakehouse architecture, most people look at it and they're a little bit scared, because they know that it takes, smart engineers to build and craft these patterns for their data. So that's squarely where Onehouse is positioned, is to kind of flip the economics, make it accessible by any company, mid-size, large, even startup companies, to be able to rapidly create these architectures with low-code experiences, fully managed experiences, serverless experiences, so that you don't have to hire and acquire that type of talent.
Since we are talking about the people side, I also want to touch quickly upon the cultural side. We do talk about the whole cultural movement. We talk about shift left movement, a ton of, cultural shift is happening. What is happening from data perspective? How organizations should prepare themselves so they do have this data mindset in place?
Yes, yes. Organizations to have this data mindset, right? I think you might have mentioned it earlier, right? Data is the oil and the lifeblood for every company. And if your company is not leveraging data or considering how to leverage this data to innovate your services or adapt these to create better customer experiences, you're behind. You're behind your competition by a large margin. And so as folks think about, what is the experience we plan to offer to our customers? What's the product we're selling? What is it that we're generating? How can data refine, adapt, or take it to the next level? They need to infuse this into all of their development teams when it comes to like cultural and people, and how the teams are developed. I've seen teams that try to form up where, this is a feature crew of engineers. All they do is build the feature and they're done. And then there's another separate team that is responsible for grabbing the data from that feature and organizing that data and understanding that data. No, you need to integrate these teams together. You need to have data-focused, data-oriented people side by side with your software engineers, if not also the same person that is trained and skilled at leveraging data, and have it come from the very beginning of the feature development lifecycle. What are we going to instrument in this feature? What data do we need to collect to make that service and monitor that service and make it better? Now, that whole strategy starts from even just the team development aspect. That's a great point you bring up, Swamil.
How is data kind of elevating, itself within organizations, or still, there's one data team, that's their part, it's an afterthought?
Yes, that's a great question. I've seen the evolution of this role also emerging of the chief data officer, right? And as you mentioned, security becoming a board level discussion, data is becoming a board level discussion. And if it's not a board level discussion at your company, that's a mistake. That's an oversight as well, I believe. And so you see at more organizations, chief data officer becoming a a proper and a popular role. If there's not a chief data officer in the mix, another C-suite is usually responsible for ultimately the data strategy within inside that organization. Sometimes I see that role taken up by a CIO or a CTO or others of these natures as well. I even seen there was one, I've gone to lots of roundtable discussions where we bring in many C-suite of executives from different companies around the world and talk about data and architecture and things like this. I saw one company even they had multiple chief data officers and of different specialties. And they had someone that was focused on like the core data platform and what are the tools and services inside that platform that power the rest of the organization. There was a chief data officer of analytics and a chief data officer of AI and innovations around this. So, that's probably a rare case, and I'm not saying that should be what is architected at most organizations, but just to say that if you don't even have one, you better be considering that within your organization to have someone focused on this initiative and making sure it's infused into every team and every goal and KPI that you have within your company. And that person can influence how the teams are formed, how the headcount is distributed, and how you make data a first-class discussion point and focus within all of your initiatives.
We have talked a lot about technology. Now let's talk about the company. Talk a bit about what plans do you have for the company? How is the company growing?
Well, we recently just announced a new funding round for Onehouse. We announced our Series B funding, led by Craft Ventures, alongside of our existing investors that we had from our Series A and seed round of Greylock and Addition. So we're very excited about that funding round. 35 million just came in to infuse the growth and acceleration of our company and product development. With that funding, we plan to expand our go-to-market team. We plan to form up these functions around marketing and sales, the solutions org, and everything else that we need to really scale up our customer growth and adoption. So we're really excited about the momentum that we have there. Alongside the funding announcement, we announced 2 new product launches at the same time. One of these is a completely free product for the open source community. It's called Lakeview, and that allows you to have observability monitoring, and you can detect and see recommendations and insights into how to tune your Lakehouse pipelines. The other one is called Onehouse Table Optimizer. And this would take it the next step further. If you see those insights and things that we recommend to you, you can go and build those on your own if you like, or use our fully managed service, and we will run table optimizations on your behalf side by side with your existing pipelines. And so, yes, we're very excited for the current momentum that we have, this new funding round that we just brought in, and for those at Craft Ventures that will help mentor us and guide us alongside Greylock and Addition as well.
Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today and talk about not only the whole evolution in this space, but also about the company, Onehouse, the work you folks are doing. It was a very insightful discussion, and I would love to have you folks again on the show because, as we discussed, we live in this data-driven world, so a lot of work is going on there. So, once again, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapna. Let's do it again. Thanks.